think we're live, Aaron. We're here.
Right.
We are.
Hello, all.
So we've missed a couple of weeks, Aaron. You were away on holidays, weren't you? I think was that holidays or was that business?
Well, the first 2 weeks. Are we live? I don't even
hang
know.
on. Here we go. I've got us.
Oh yeah, we're live. Oh, I got it. I got.
I've got it. I've stopped it again.
Oh wait, shoot.
Yeah. So
are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. So let us know, what were you up to?
So anyways, the first week you called off because you had some prior engagements, and then the second week you called off for something else, I think, or whatever. And then the third week I called off because I was in Dominican Republic, and we were traveling and internet wasn't all that great, so I had to call off last week. So here we are, weeks later. It seems like it's been really long, and I feel all out of whack. I feel like that in 1 week, let alone 3. So yeah, Dominican Republic, it was absolutely beautiful there, and did a couple photo shoots. I'm going to share one of those photos today. And yeah, so what about you?
Well, I saw your photos. I was obviously following on Facebook and Instagram, and they look beautiful. It looks like it's a lovely place. Is that got like a Spanish influence as well? Because you're looking at that architecture.
Yep. Well, I don't know about the architecture. I mean, it's a Spanish country, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not too much into architecture. What kind was it? My wife would probably know, but that was, I don't even remember the name. It was up north, and it was a smaller, it's not a hotel. I guess it's a hotel, but it's a small, quaint little type thing. And it was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, we enjoyed it. Then we drove 5 hours south to another place that's really popular. Again, I don't know the names of all these things. And that was not quite as beautiful as far as all that detail, but the grounds and everything it's just a beautiful country. So we really enjoyed it.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. So I'm looking forward to a holiday. I don't think I'm going to have one until I come out to the States. So I might do a mini holiday somewhere during the year, but I don't think I'll be doing anything until I come to the States.
Nothing major.
In February.
Because you're going on a big trip to the States and California and all that stuff. So that's pretty costly. So yeah, you better save your pennies for that one.
Yeah, it's a big trip for us here. It's about as far as you can go. I think the flight's 14 hours, I think, direct to LA. So it's a pretty big one, but looking forward to it. So apart from that, I've just been reviewing stuff actually. Like I've reviewed a new gimbal. I don't know whether you've seen that footage that I just posted.
Yep. I've seen everything you put up. I'd been running around, so I couldn't comment. I think maybe a comment on a few, but I had seen all your photos and try to like them as I go. Sometimes I've been so busy I couldn't comment on you or other people's text posts, but I've seen them. How's that gimbal? How you think that gimbal is in the end after you've done the video?
I really like it. Like it's here. What I like about it is it's reasonably light. I mean, it's sort of about the same. I've just dropped my pen. It's sort of about the same lightness as the Moser Aircross that I also love. But I do love the controls on this, and I love the handle. So I've only really used it for that. I got it just the other day, and I only used it for the full shoot that I did on Saturday. And I really liked it. So I'll let you know more as I start to use it, a little bit more. But the controls certainly are superior to anything that I've used before, because it's all a touch interface. So it's really nice to use in that regard. So I probably will use that now as my lighter gimbal, and then I'll use the Moser Air 2 for whenever I put more heavier gear on, like the A9 or the A7 III. But that gimbal with an A6 400 is like magic, and it worked fantastic. So yeah, it's really good. The other thing I'm looking at, I'm going to put a review up today, I think, is this little thing I love this. This is unreal, Aaron. This is a setup. It's a complete cage for the OSMO Action.
I can't see it because it's black on black.
Yeah,
Can you maybe hold it up?
Let me see if I can move over there. So
that looks nice.
Yeah, this is unreal. Oh, hang on, I'll hold it down there because you might be able to see it a bit better. So it's a full cage set up. Now, you can't take the handle off, obviously, if you don't want to do it. But what I love about this is it has an ND on the front, so it's just got a normal ND.
Yeah, I see that.
So what I love about that is I don't have to buy all those separate NDs that you have normally. I can just put I think it's a 49mm ND. Now, that does come off. But I'll sort of explain this when I do the review. But it's great because you can get to everything, like even if you're opening up the latches and everything, you can get to it all, and you can mount things. Because I'm sure eventually what's going to happen is they're going to, they'll release a microphone adapter for this, and then I can obviously put the microphone adapter on the hot shoe over here, and then it's a complete traveling unit that I can get audio in and everything else. So, you know, and you've got all your mounting points on the handle, or you can take that off if you think that's too big. But the stabilization on this is so good that it's really nice to just walk and hold this handle. I mean, and even if you're vlogging sort of backwards, just to sort of point it to yourself like this, and then do it that way, and then you can just look at the front monitor and control the ND just by turning it.
Now you can can you unscrew the handle and flip it towards you? So
yes,
or on the side or other. Okay, that's cool.
Yep. So you can just take that off. I mean, basically it just screws on, and then you could turn it around the opposite way if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I know. I love it, and it's really nice. So the other cage was annoying the hell out of me because I couldn't get to the little port to charge it up. You had to take it off each time you wanted to charge it and do things like that, whereas this is all accessible. So yeah, and it's just got your normal attachments, which are the normal GoPro attachments through here. But stay tuned because I'll review it today, put it up, let you know what I think about it. I'll put a link for Small Rig. They've sent that to me. I haven't had to pay for it, so I was happy for that. But I would have bought this anyway because I really do like it, and I like those mounting points. And I wanted something robust that I could take with me to the US for my trip. So looking forward to that.
Looks very, 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 very cool. So should we start the show? It's 8:08.
We shall. So let's go to the first story. Oh, what were you drinking? You're going to talk about your coffee first, usually, don't you?
Yeah. Let's go. Well, we can start the show, I guess. Okay. I can.
All right. So we're going to do the first story we're going to today. Just let me share
Well, actually, you know what? Let me, start the show. I want to say something real quick.
Do you want to say something or?
Yeah, I wanted to, I know you asked me what, went on this week, and another kind of sad thing happened to us was we have we call our dogs kids, and we have two of them. We have Lila and Linda, and me and my wife's been married for about, 18 years now, or 19 years, and our little one's been with us for 16 years, but she passed away a couple days ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that, Aaron. It's like losing a family member. It really is. I know what it's like.
Can you see my screen? Yeah. So the one I'm holding is Lila, and this is Linda. So it's a small one. She passed away. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And yeah, we're really sad about it, but we will move on before I get emotional. So
yeah, you'll have to look after the other one because that happened to me. We had two dogs, and one dog was actually bitten by a brown snake. So a snake got into my garden and killed the dog. We rushed him to the vet, but he died within an hour. We couldn't stop it because it was too quick. So, but the other dog went into depression. So you're going to have to watch your other dog.
It's true, because I noticed that she's changed. It's like, wow, it's like really crazy. So yeah, we're trying to pour all our love out to the other one too, and keep her busy and excited, because it's true. It's just absolutely amazing. So let's move on. Like I said, I do get emotional, but what I do is Gerald posted a post on our Facebook page. Am I still on or no?
Yes, you're still on. Oh,
okay. And it was about him saying that he found like a travel vlog about London, and he said that's one of his favorite cities to photograph in. So every time we do the show, I drink from a different place because we have tons of mugs because we travel. So because of you, Gerald, I pulled out the England mug. So hello to all my English people. And Starbucks coffee is going in, and we're going to enjoy ourselves. So, okay, should we start the first story?
Let's start. So I'm going to go over here.
Let's see. Oops, I screwed something up.
Application, and I'm going to go to this one. All right, so the first story we're looking at here is this is Sony have just announced a new lens, and it's the Sony 35 1.8 FE. They've been talking about this for a while, or we've had rumors about this for a while, but they've just announced it. Now, the only thing I can say looking at and I'd love to know too in the chat later on what people think about the price, because I think it's a little bit expensive. It's come in at $748 US. So it's not what you'd term a really cheap lens, when I thought what Sony were going to do here was they were going to have something similar to the 85, and then the 35 would also be a reasonably cheap entry-level lens. And I think it's probably one to say $100 to $150, even possibly $200, a bit overpriced, I think, Aaron. So, but anyway, let's have a look at it. At the lens, there is some reviews that you can have for some quick reviews about it. I mean, there are some interesting things that it does have the AM/FM manual switch, and it also does have one controllable focus or action button, that focus hole button there as well. It seems to be that it's a similar size to the Sony 55. It's a little bit bigger, I believe, than what the 55 is. But I know from what I've been talking or looking at people's comments online, that a lot of people are saying they think it's a little bit overpriced, particularly seeing that now that Sigma are moving into this marketplace as well. If the Sigma 35 I think it's the 1.2 lens that is rumored to be announced in a few days, actually, I think, if that lens comes out and it's similarly priced or a fraction more, I probably think that I would go to the Sigma. This is another page here where you can see just how it looks. Like I said, I think it looks very, very similar to the Sony 55 when you're looking at it, apart from the Sony 55 hasn't got the AM/FM switch and the focus hole button. But, I mean, and there's also I'll just show you some quick samples here that I found that people have posted. It looks like it's going to be a really nice sharp lens. And I suppose if you look at anything like the 85 1.8, that is also a very, very sharp lens as well. So it seems to be in that tradition that they're giving, a really good lens. But I don't know. I just think it may be a little bit overpriced, Aaron. I think that nearly $800, I think, and the $750 is a bit expensive.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. I was excited to see it, first of all, because a lot of people have been waiting for that, and that 85 millimeter f1.8 is so good. And yeah, it is a little expensive. At least it's available for those who really wanted or was waiting for it. But yeah, it's a little pricey. What was you using? Your 35 millimeter that you were using 35 and 85?
Yes, and
you just said.
Yeah, I had the 1.4, so I had the 1.4. Yeah, but I sold that when I got the 24.
Yeah,
but I may get the Sigma 35 1.2 if that lens, and if it's an art series lens, I've got no doubt that that's going to be a really nice lens, and being 1.2 could be an amazing event lens. And if that, I don't think that'll be much dearer than what the Sony lens is. So I'm not sure if Sony may have priced themselves out of the market with that price range. It's going to be interesting, and I'm interested to see what people say in the chat, because here in Australia, that's probably going to be around about $300, about $1,000. And I just think that's too much for an entry-level lens. I'm a little bit disappointed for people. I mean, I probably wouldn't have got it anyway because I'm not interested in a 35 1.8. But I know Gilbert has been dying to get this lens.
Gilbert.
Yeah, but he was talking in the photography videography school, saying that he now won't be getting it because it's too much money, and I think a lot of people may now be in that boat. I think Sony missed the boat, in other words, that they could have had a really good entry-level lens for the 35 and 85, which would be perfect, reasonably inexpensive. But I think they've priced this one a little bit high.
Yeah, I think it should have been closer to the 85 because people were probably expecting it to be at least like around there. But now, just like Gilbert said, it's like, I would have gotten it, but now it's just too much. Because kind of can live without it for that type of price. I think if you got the money, well, hey, it's good stuff. But I like the idea of you getting that Sigma one because it's going to be as sharp or sharper, and it's f1.2. So, which one would you go for? Maybe the Sigma. Yeah,
like I said, it may depend on a lot of people. Thanks also too for giving the donation there. Really appreciate that. It's just interesting. Like I've thought initially when this sort of came out, I thought the price range was going to be sort of around about that $550 US. That's what I thought it was going to be sort of priced at. But I just think it probably is. It's definitely overpriced for what it is. I noticed Gerald's just said, I think the Sony 35 is $200 overpriced. Maybe they feel it has more GM-like features. Sigma's 35 1.2 is reasonable. Watch out, Sony. And I think that may be what a lot of people are doing now. You know, Chris has said it seems like it's about $100 too much. Brett said the 85 was $880. I'd expect to pay more, though. I think, Brett, for this is just how I'm thinking. I'd expect an 85 to be a bit more expensive than the 35. I just think, I don't know. I just think with Sigma coming on board, with Tamron coming out now with lenses, and everyone else, Sony need to be a little bit careful with their pricing, that they try and match or not go too far above what others are producing, particularly Sigma, who produce the art lenses, which are excellent. I mean, I've never seen a bad art series lens, and you know, it's just going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yes, indeed. Anybody else say anything up there?
I'm just saying, Unboxed Tech Review said it's a G-rated price, if you ask me, and I think you're right. I think it is a G-rated price for that lens, but Brett's, I mean, he's saying he doesn't think it's too expensive. So it's going to be interesting to see what people are saying. Hero says the Sigma 35 1.2 is going to be $950. But you know what? Even if it is Hero, even if that 35 1.2 is $950, I'd prefer to pay that than I would for the f1.8. You know,
I see a couple. Sorry, I see a couple people saying they would pay $600, $650, and that's, I think, what people were hoping for.
Yeah.
And now that's not there. People say, "Well, I'll pass. I'll just keep what I have or get something else."
But it's just an interesting conversation anyway. So let us know in the comment box down below what you think about this, because I'd be really interested to know what you guys think about whether you do think it's overpriced, and if you do, what sort of price range do you think it was going? Having a think about it, I said 500 before. There was no way it was going to come in at 500, but perhaps 600, may have been a fair price that this lens should have been at. I think. Remember, their target, they're looking at these lenses, they're entry-level lenses, and that would join, say, something like the A7 III, or it could even be another camera that we're going to talk about in the next story. But, yeah, I just think it's a little bit overpriced anyway. And let's go. Brett also just said there to compare it to the 35 1.4 Zeiss, for $2,300. Yeah, but I also think that lens is overpriced, Brett, as well. I think for that lens, like I said, if Sigma bring out a 35 f1.2, and that is around $1,000, that is going to hurt the Sony Zeiss 35 1.4 badly. That is another reason why I wanted to get rid of mine, because I sort of had inklings about what was going to come out. And I did at the time.
You're a smart man. You're a smart man.
Yeah. So it's
That's good.
All right, so let's go to the next story, which is an interesting one. I want to have a bit of a discussion. So it's sort of rumory, and I will go on about this more on Friday's show. But it's an SR5. Now, initially, Sony Alpha Rumors was saying that they thought we were going to get a new A6-700 announced on the 17th, because apparently there is going to be an announcement on the 17th, and they're saying now that they believe it's going to be an RX camera. So it's going to be a new RX camera, but they're saying it's not now going to be an A6-500. They're saying it's some secret model that is now a new FE mount camera, and they're saying that it may be an A5. So what this is saying, basically, well, let me just finish this first, and then I'll discuss that with you. But it's saying, from what I've heard, the A7S III is not ready to be in the market now, and the A9 isn't either. So what else could this be? So let me just quit this. So it keeps changing daily. Like, it's interesting that the A9 II has to be, if they're going to release it, it's got to be at least announced sometime this year, and then perhaps released early next year for the Olympics. So we know that's somewhere going to be announced. The A7S III, obviously there's been issues with heat or something like that that is holding that camera back. And we still haven't had an answer yet to the X-T3, which you use, Aaron, for video. I mean, there's nothing in the Sony range that can match the video side of things. And I've talked about this before. There's nothing can match the Fuji side or Nikon for video, which is the higher bit rates and things like that, which are really important. And I'll let you discuss that in a second. But they're now saying that it may be a lower-ended camera, which is going to be an A5. Now, this may be a targeted approach to, say, beat Canon that have said they're going to announce a cheaper full frame. I think that was Canon or Nikon. It might have been Nikon. We're going to release a cheaper full frame camera. So perhaps they're preempting that and then going to bring out a cheap A5 camera to combat that. But I don't know if that's the right move, because I really don't know if Sony need an A5 camera. What they need is an A6500 replacement, definitely. They need an A7S3, definitely, for video people. And they also, well, I don't necessarily believe that they need a new A9 II, because there's nothing to compete with that in the marketplace at the moment. But they haven't answered Fuji, Aaron. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I have no idea where they're going to go with this. They're making would they make a cheaper full frame, cheaper than the A7 III, because everybody was so excited about the pricing on that? I don't know. When I saw this article, I even read some of the other people's comments below on this article, because I was had no idea, and see what other people were talking about. And I don't think anybody knows. You can only speculate. And like you said, the cameras that they need are the cameras you would think that they would come out, but then they say it's going to be a whole different thing. So what could that be? Could it be, are they getting rid of the smaller cameras, like, because of the heat problem? So they're just going to say, we have to go bigger if we're going to go with more video quality, and so they're going to go a little bigger to accommodate the heat? Or are they going to make the same size thing but make a full frame that's cheaper than the A7 III? So I have no idea. I would like to see your guys' comments in the live chat, and if you're watching this later, leave it in the description below, because I'm clueless.
Yeah,
you would know. I think you have more ideas than what I would, and I have no idea what it could be.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. I don't think they need a cheaper camera than what.
No.
I mean, that would be the A6500 replacement. Is sort of that camera that would come in under that. Or actually, if it's an A7000, that may be priced similarly to an A7 III. It could be, depending on what they put in that. If that's a high-end APS-C camera, it may be priced fairly high. But the thing is, if they're bringing out a lower-ended camera, what is going to be in it, for starters? So what are they going to give us in that camera? They can't hurt the A7 III sales.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I don't really understand what it can be. And this is where these rumors are now starting to confuse me, in saying, I don't think we need an A5, a lower-ended full-frame camera, because they would have to dumb it down, for starters, and then what are they going to charge for that? And I think if they were dumbing it down too much, you'd be better off to get, say, an A6400 or, an A7000 when it's released. I think Sony's priority should be a replacement for the A6400. That's what I think should be their main replacement at this stage.
Wouldn't that be the one to make it $1,500 or whatever, like the X-T3, to have the features similar? But then when I was reading people, they said, no, it's not going to be full frame. It's not going to be APS-C. So is it a 1-inch sensor? Is it going to be like a bigger camera that goes after the Fuji X100, GFX 100? I mean, I'm just so confused with the rumors. And they were saying that Sony, this is one of the most kept secrets that Sony's ever had, or something like that, with this particular one, because none of the rumor people actually really know. They just know that something's brewing, and they just don't know what it is. So I have no idea. What do you guys think? Is anybody saying what it might be?
Well, I'm DeBrown. G'day, mate. Just said, Aaron J. Anderson, think about this. It's going to have no time limits on video. That would be a great advantage over the A7 III, especially if it has the video tracking like the A6400. But the interesting thing is, I don't know whether they can do that at that price range. So for me,
that is the thing.
The perfect camera that they should bring out now, while we're waiting for the A7S III, is a new APS-C camera. They need to bring out something that is priced like the X-T3, that will give us 400 megabits per second, give us 4K 60p, and then with the same focusing, an IBIS, and the same focusing that the A6400 has. That's what Sony needs to be releasing now. And I mean, they may do something completely, like I said, bring out a medium format camera or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could do anything. You just don't know. But I just don't understand why they're not filling that niche at the moment that people are screaming for with higher bit rates and stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing, like the medium format thing, I mean, would they really want to go after a Fuji GFX 100? I mean, I'm all over in the Fuji groups. Not a lot of people have that camera. Let's just be honest. It's really large. It's very expensive, and it's just very special. People and fields that get paid really good are using that. So I don't see that's even something that would hurt a Sony line. I mean, if I wanted more megapixels, like right now today, I would probably go for a Sony A7R3 if I needed more megapixels. So they might try to just get a new format that's full frame with more megapixels. I mean, I don't know what the maximum megapixels is for full frame. What is that, 42 or 52 or something like that? Or
well, at the moment it's 42 on the A7R. Canon have 50, I think, at the moment, so maybe, don't they?
50 might be pushing it, maybe 52. So that's the only thing I think they can do in full frame as far as try to go after that Canon camera or the Fuji GFX 100. But I don't even think that camera's hurting them at all. So it's got to be that X-T3 thing or a cheaper Sony A7 III. But like you said, they would have to dumb it down so much if they're going to make it cheaper, and then it's like then we're back into like I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's just an interesting scenario at the moment. I mean, obviously Sony at the moment must be happy with the sales that they're getting, and that's the reason why they haven't released anything in that regard to replace those cameras. But and I love using the A6400, and like I just did with that review the other day with that new gimbal. I mean, I think the video looks gorgeous out of it, and it is really beautiful. But the problem is that if I was a full-on videographer, and I'm not, so I'm not. I'm a fusion photographer, so I do a mix of both. But if you're a full-on videographer, Sony now are lacking in the fact that they just haven't got the bit depths to what those videographers are looking for, because they like to grade the footage so much. It's like at the moment all we're shooting in is JPEG. It's like the difference between shooting JPEG and RAW. And if you've got those higher bit depths, then it's like shooting RAW. So in other words, Sony at the moment with video are tied down to almost like you're editing a JPEG file, whereas if you're using Fuji or you're using Nikon, you basically have the feature of like being able to manipulate raw footage, because it's just so manipulatable in the editors.
Well, in the way I see things, because I'm a video guy and photography, like major in both ways, not just kind of or whatever. And when you're hanging around the groups of video, you could probably see it yourself, even if you're a photographer, and even glimpsed at any YouTube videos about video features. And everybody for the longest time now has always wanted to shoot flat picture styles to get the most grading. I mean, that's like just the thing that people care about. I actually don't care much about that, even though I'm big into video, because usually if I'm doing if I'm lighting a scene for a commercial, I'm usually lighting the scene with in the dynamic range of my camera, so it's not a big deal to me to shoot completely flat. It does help if you're out shooting a short film and you don't have the budget to get lights and all this stuff, so I understand that. But that's like been a big thing, is shooting flat. So those same people that are really into that, even I don't think half of them need that. They want those bigger what do you call it, bit depths or whatever?
Bit depths, yep.
They don't need that either, but they think they do. Most of the people, very few people actually need that. But so that is kind of a thing, and people are buying cameras. When you go into the video realm, if you're a photographer, you kind of stick around the photography thing, so you don't really see what the video guys are thinking or wanting. And a lot of people want or think they need those bigger bit depths. So I think Sony really does need to come out with a camera that at least comes close with price and features in video as the X-T3, because that camera sold a lot, and a lot of those people are those video people looking for that. So I think Sony's missing out on that spectrum of people, which half those people I don't think need that, but that's what people want. So I think that's the camera Sony should be putting out. But I'm very interested about this, what's coming out July 17th. What is that, 2 weeks from now or so? So yeah. I'm excited to see what it is.
I mean, the thing is, too, people have to understand, look, you don't see it in a lot of your footage. Like if you look at the footage that I did the other day. I'm quite happy with that footage that I shot around the beaches just near me. But
what camera is that?
That was the A6-400. So I mean, it's quite good. And I shot in 4K. I think it was 4K 24p. I used for that. But the problem was that I exposed with the ND filters on there, and I made sure that I nailed my exposure. And there wasn't that great difference of dynamic range that I had to adjust for. So I sort of just nailed the exposure as good as I could for the highlights. But the thing is, if you want to start to push this, particularly say if you're doing weddings and things like that, or it's scenery, you're going to get gradient problems in the skies and stuff with a Sony camera, which you won't get if you're shooting with higher bit depths. And that's where Sony is lacking at the moment.
And a lot of people, like I said, you know, they hear that, they see that, so they want that, even though I don't think they need it, because they're just doing simple little like B-roll for YouTube videos. If there's a little banding, I don't think it's a big deal. But if you're doing something for a client and people's paying for you, then you're going to need that. And Sony just doesn't have that. So I think that's a camera they need.
Well, and the interesting thing is too, if you haven't watched that video, go and watch it. The video footage that I've done is sort of I think it's three-quarter way through. But I've had comments, people were saying, has it been shot in HDR? And, you know, did you use profiles in that? And it wasn't. Everything was standard in that. And this is why I keep telling people that the standard profiles now on cameras like the A6-400, the A9, which I love, and the A7 III are gorgeous. And everyone is always shocked when I say, no, it's only the standard profile, because they always think that I've used, color grading, or say HDR or something like that, you know, and it hasn't been. It's just been the standard profile.
Well, even though I have the X-T3, I just use the standard too. I get countless comments on almost every one of my videos, like what you're looking at right now. They're saying, what do you use to color grade that and everything? And the way I set up my YouTube channel now for in the studio here, if I don't set up something that's just ready to go, I tend not to do videos because I'm so busy. I need just to click and go. So I did a video on my setup here, but the X-T3 is just on standard. I've got the white balance a little warmer than usual. And then I'm plugged right what's that thing we use, the 4K HD link or whatever it's called, into my computer. And the computer is actually the one recording what it sees. It's not even in the camera. So, and people think it's a graded thing. So it's like you, I think the standards are actually good enough for most people. I think people troubled themselves too much of trying to get bigger the bit depths and a flat picture profile and spending all this time bringing it back up to when it just looks great. But that's just my take on color profiles.
It's only really, really high key type stuff, you know, very high contrast stuff where I would then say I would have to use Sign 2 or any of the other picture profiles. As long as you nail the exposure, and this is the secret to doing it, and that's why people always say, how do you get the colors so good, David? Just by shooting standard. But the thing is, I use the ND and I just make sure that I nail the exposure. I use the histogram to make sure that I'm not clipping anything in the highlights. And then it's very little post-processing later on, you know, and I don't have to do all this massive editing in the editor, which takes time. And things like that. So just an interesting discussion. All right, so that's that discussion. Just let me check what a couple of people are saying in this chat, because I'd love to know what people are saying. The other thing too, it's good to, I also should say too, I often shoot with manual white balance. So that's often the only thing I do. I'll do use the color checker passport, which I haven't got on me. No, it's in the other room. So I do use that. And or if you haven't got that, and say it's a sunny day, you're better off to say put sunny into your settings, or use, you know, a 500-600K setting, something like that, so that the color white balance is not changing all the time, because that can be a real problem. That's a good
point. Very good point. I always forget to tell people that, but that's an absolute good point.
Mark said, hobby shooters these days are mainly centered around Instagram, YouTube, etc. So it makes sense to have APS-C where everything is more compact, cheaper, and fills all their requirements. PhotoMeX said, color checker your work. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so he's got that. Yeah, he's mentioned color checker there. PhotoMeX said, or use a camera that has great colors built in. Rob said, is this entire chat about video? I'm just stills photographer and it's 1:30 a.m. so I can go to sleep. Well, it's about both, Ray. So this is more a mix of about both. So I suppose it's up to you whether you'd like to stay chiming in. Oreo said, all I want is the A6400 with 4K 60p and dual card slots. It can also lose the flippy screen. I don't mind about it. And that is what a lot of people are after, just that 4K 60. And like I said, with a higher bit depth, if we could get that too. Gerald says, oh, I'm not. Yeah, I think they're arguing between each other. Now someone else mentioned too the Nikon Z5. That's what it was. I think that I said before that people may be, Sony may be sort of going to think they might have to target what the Nikon Z5 may give, because that's going to be their cheaper end model. So whether Sony's thinking they have to combat that, we don't know.
That's a good point.
What else have we got? Gerald says that the low-end full-frame mirrorless sales numbers show the EOS R is tanking. Nikon should not be rushing to the bottom of that market. Yeah, I don't think they're selling that well. That's the thing. It's going to be interesting to see how that market.
And I don't think Sony needs a cheaper full frame, to be honest.
No, neither do I. Stephen said, Sue, do I set the white balance in camera? Yes. Use something like a color checker if you have it. If you haven't got that, like I said, set it so it's on sunny, shade, or whatever. And then as long as you don't change the environments, leave it so that everything is set and it's not constantly giving you a different white balance, because it's hard to match clips if you don't put a manual white balance in.
Yeah, if you have it on auto white balance, what happens is if let's say you're on a beach like David was the other day and he's facing this way and it's a little shady, shadow or shade from something, then things will turn a little blue. And then if the model or whatever he's filming walks this way, and then now the camera sees a different color balance because now they're in sunny light, it can get back to normal. So you're going to get this orangey and bluey type clips. Whereas if you just keep it at sunny, it'll all stay the same and it won't fluctuate so much unless you're doing dramatic change, like going from let's say you're here in Puerto Rico and you're going onto the beach and then you're walking into the jungle where you're going to have a whole different light balance. Then you're going to want to change the white balance again to match the new complete environment.
Brett said standard video settings from the A7 III and the A9 are good as they are without the video profiles, as David does. Yeah, and like I said, I very rarely ever use profiles, and you can check my videos and see if you like the look of them, but I've never had complaints that the videos don't look nice. The rubber on my A9 is peeling like cheap, though. Oh, really? I haven't had that happen, Hero. Hero says, I see what it's like when the A7 R2 gets here, and I make a review. I'm not sure what that means. I think he's bought the A7 R2. Rob said, I'll keep the eyes open, laugh out loud. I like listening to you guys, because I think Rob was whinging before because we were talking about video, not photography.
We get into both. We talk more about photography than video, but we want to be this. This is called Behind the Photo, and of course it's behind the photo, but a lot of people like video out there, as myself. So we kind of talk about both, but we talk a lot more about photography. Maybe you just came in and we're talking about video. And Aaron Ho says he likes Eterna on his XH1, which is a film simulation, which that is a good flat picture profile that's kind of already graded a little bit, and you just got to tweak just a couple sliders. So yeah, that's a really good one to use, by the way.
G'day, Aaron. Okay, so let's. I think I've just blown that up a little bit larger. I hate that. Where are we? Actual size. All right, so let me go to the next story.
I think you skipped something in our notes. It should be the Fujifilm weather sealing.
No, that's next.
Okay, so OSMO Pocket is next.
So we've got the Fujifilm next, and then the Osmo after that. It's if you look at the.
You just missed it here. I'll put it.
Yeah, if you look at the document up there, it's should be up there, isn't it? Did I miss something in the timeline?
You missed the Fuji thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to type it right now.
All right. So the next story we're going to look at, and we can get Aaron to have a chat about this. I'll just bring it up on the screen. Or did you want to move it, Aaron, so you can sort of talk about it as you go?
Let's hope for the best when I click on this. Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so I was reading some articles here, Fujifilm X-T3. There's a website that it's called Image Resources. That's where we're at here. And they did weather tests before on, it's like a really watched video. They put a Canon, they put a Nikon, a Canon, a Sony together. And what they do is they actually get scientific about on how much rain falls and precipitation and all this stuff. You can read the exact thing. But what they do is that for, I might be wrong, it's like 30 minutes, I think, they squirt a hose of water in the air and just let it rain down on the cameras. All the cameras have weather sealed lenses attached and everything's, you know, buttoned up, everything's turned on and all that stuff. And they let it rain basically from a hose for like 30 minutes. And they rate how, you know, how long can that specific camera last. And in that test, everybody, you know, it was like a big thing on the internet because the Sony failed pretty quick. A lot of battery, I think it was the Sony A7R 2 or 3. You have to go back and watch that. But nonetheless, water got in the battery compartment from the top. That's kind of a known thing. And then the bottom plate apparently it's just a plastic plate on metal where there's no sealing and it can rain or water can get in from there. And they let just rain on that for 30 minutes. If a camera passes that, has no ill effects, then they bring it inside and they let it dry out. And then the next day, they do the same test, but for 70 minutes of water raining on it. And so that's how they do that. So now they did the X-T3 recently, and here's an article. We'll leave the link in the description. And the X-T3 made it like all the way for the first day for 30 minutes and with no ill effects at all. And then the second day, the 70-minute, it lasted for 40 minutes before it started glitching. So that's pretty darn good. And if you look down here, if I can find this, it's a long article. Let me see. Here's the battery compartment. Now there's 2 drops of water here. And if you read this, it's because when they opened the battery compartment, the water dropped off from the edge. So it wasn't actually, it never came through the seals. And here's another view of the battery grip. You can see the water here, but that's just from when they opened it. The water was around the seal, not inside. And here is the memory card slot. There was no water that entered there. You can see how good they seal this stuff up. And this little space is basically where the cards are. So the rubber goes all the way around the card slots. And that's like all their things here. So see, when you close that, those are completely sealed. No water in there. And this is the second day. Now, what you will see on the other side, where the HDMI is, you're going to see that water did come in here. And what they were saying is this was after 40 minutes, the second day. And what they were saying, like all camera manufacturers that they've tested, they don't use like the rubber that they use is kind of a sponge rubber. So it actually will soak in water after prolonged periods of, you know, drenching. So this X-T3 failed only 40 minutes of drenching the next day after the 30 minutes, which was already saturated from the previous day. So that says a lot that for 30 minutes in a downpour, it lasted, and then 40 more minutes with the gasket already drenched, and it made it. And you can see how this little area here is all rubber around here. And the way this is, now you're going to see some water around here, but it never gets inside the ports because the way Fuji does it is they raise up this portion of where the holes are. And so when you close this, they're basically inside here off of the flat part of this part. I don't know what you call that. So it's really, really protected here. And if we go down, this is the remote. That's just all rubber, which there's nothing got in there. And here's me and David. We talked about this several times on, do you need a hot shoe cover that cameras come with? Because we always lose those. And it's like, do you buy another one or whatever? Well, of course, all these cameras that they test have the hot shoe little plastic cover on, and they had no ill effects with that cover on, even though it got drenched for 30 minutes one day, then 40 minutes the next day. And they said the water that you see here was from when they slid off the plastic thing, but even that had no ill effects on the electronics. So that was pretty cool. And here's the underside of that little plastic hot shoe clip. And I wanted to read something here, but I don't know if I will find it. See here, 40 minutes, 70 minutes. They do the 70-minute thing. Anything else? The touchscreen started being unresponsive after that 40 minutes of drenching. Remember, that's the second day of drenching. And the viewfinder eye detect sensor never gave false triggers. And failure mode, once it got too wet, so it froze up after 40 minutes, basically. So you can read this article, and it's pretty amazing. And if you have, here's a lot of, you see some water around here, and this was usually due to the gasket from the weather-sealed lenses. Almost on all the cameras, kept the water from actually going in here. It's only when they took it off did the water that was beaded on the side kind of dripped in. And here's the lens. Looks kind of wet here, actually, but nothing happened till after all that drenching. So quite cool. Am I on now?
Yep.
This is the XH1. That was the X-T3. And a lot of people, the XH1 has 20% thicker magnesium alloy. Is that what you call it? Body. So it's a thicker chassis. Whoops, I'm out of focus. And it has two durable coats of paint. But the weather sealing on this, when I look back and forth from the X-T3 and the XH1, it looks identical. So you can rest assured that not only is the XH1 more durable, it has the same weather sealing. So, they didn't test this, but you can pretty much assume that you can be in a 30-minute downpour. Go watch their videos. It's just downpour for 30 minutes and then 40 minutes the next day, and it held up. So that's a good plus for a Fujifilm. So if you ever wondered about weather sealing on the Fuji cameras, at least the X-T3 will say that because that's the one they tested. It's pretty darn good. What do you think, David?
Well, yeah, look, I knew when I got to the Panasonic GH5 how good that was with the weather sealing. But I mean, they're extreme tests too, aren't they? I mean, I suppose I've never had water in my camera, but I'm sort of a little bit careful with it. Yeah, and I go out in the rain and stuff like that, and I've never had it be a problem. But I understand the thing too, the weaknesses are definitely in the Sony cameras is the hot shoe and also the battery compartment. So you should not put it down like in a puddle on the ground, because that's just asking for trouble if you do that. So you've got to be careful if you place your Sony cameras on the ground. That's why it might be good if you've got something like an L bracket or something on there that lifts it up that little bit and it avoids that problem. But like I said, I know Photomix said it's a very extreme test, and it was. And we were just showing there how good the weather sealing is in that. Sony definitely could improve their weather sealing, and they have. I think the A9 is much better than what the other cameras are. And I suppose you're going to find as time goes on now, they'll get better and better with how things work. But there's definitely weaknesses there that they could be improved. But it's just something you've got to be aware of, but particularly keep that hot shoe covered, because you've got all those contacts in the Sony camera that if that gets water in it, it can basically short out. So yeah, it's important to do that.
I will add that out of all the cameras I had for the last 11 years, some inexpensive cameras that probably had no weather sealing, none of them ever got damaged to water. And I would say because I just never put them in any kind of rain because I'm really careful with my stuff. And even though the Fuji shows that if you can get a camera drenched for 30 minutes one day, the gasket's still wet, the next day 40 more minutes, then you can rest assured that you could be in rain and just feel comfortable about it. Even though that I still probably won't do it. Unless I got like a wedding and it's raining and you got to get that shot, I won't hesitate using my Fujifilm lenses with cameras with a lens that has a gasket or weather sealed on it. So it is just assuring that if you're doing some outside stuff in the rain, that the X-T3 will hold up. And I had no other issues. Now, when I had the Sony, I've heard a lot of people in comments saying I just got one drop on something in it. I don't know if I believe that. Just one drop can ruin a camera. I don't know if you guys had any experience on that, but I don't know if one drop could kill a camera, but yeah, I've heard that it could.
So I think a lot of those are trolls because, like I said,
I think it is.
Yeah, I've had my camera out in really quite bad weather, and I've never had any issues with it. But I am sort of, like I said, careful about not putting it on the ground and stuff like that.
None of my cameras. So
All right, let's move on. Let's go on to the next story, which is the Osmo. Where are we? Let me just share that. Now, I haven't done this update yet. I must do it because...
Yes, well, you never used the camera, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah, I know. I hardly ever do. I should, but I might now if it's got this great update, because apparently the latest update has added
Are you sharing?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it adds phase detection autofocus. So, wow, what an update. It's interesting how they can do that, and Panasonic can't do it, though. I mean, that's quite interesting, isn't it? But, yes, so now they've added phase detection on this. And the videos that I've seen with it being used, it looks like there has definitely been an update in how this thing focuses. Have you updated this, Aaron?
Yeah, I absolutely did, because this is like my main behind the scenes camera, and I know Photo Miyake. I don't know if he still uses this, but I know he was using the Osmo for I don't know how. I think he has people filming him sometimes, but I think he used it also. And if you're watching Ike and you still use it, it does make a difference. I haven't used it in an actual video thing yet, but just playing around with it, it's just like, wow, that's pretty good. And I was going to say what you just said. I'm holding it right here. Why can't Panasonic just do that? I mean, if they just did that, no one would have any complaints with their stuff, because it's not perfect, but it's so much better than it was. And sometimes when I put it on my light stand to film myself, even when I'm standing in front talking, in that little thing right there, I can see it go out. But now, just doing I maybe did 10-minute test, it didn't really wobble much, and it tracked me really good. So, and the speed of it just seems smoother and nicer. So it does work. So if you got it, it's free to update it, so you might as well, and it works really, really good.
Yeah, I'll have to have a look at it. Perhaps it might make me use it more. I can't stop using this little thing, though. I mean, I love this, the Osmo Action. I actually have used this, Aaron, and I use it a lot. But I mean, I don't know. I'll update the Pocket and then see what I think about it after that.
Why are you finding yourself using that more? I keep putting my hand in my focus box. Why you keep using that more than the Osmo? What's just drawing you to that? Because of the cage, and it's
no, it's not the cage, but it's more the fact of I like the form factor. I like it's just a little bit more robust than what the Osmo Pocket is. And I'm finding that sort of doing the vlogging and stuff, it's sort of easier to use this, I'm finding, than using that. I find the stabilization on this is just nuts. It's just incredible. But I just seem to think I'm always a little bit worried with a Pocket that I'm going to break something, or, because it's got that moving component and you've got to wait for it to sort of fire up and go like that. Whereas this, I just turn on and just start shooting sort of immediately. I also like that you can have all the attachments from GoPro, because I already had all the attachments for GoPro for this. So that sort of helps as well. But like I said, I just love this now that I've just got the ND that I can sit on the front of this cage, which is just unbelievable. Wait till you see that. I'll review it later today. But it's fantastic. But I'll update the Pocket. I should probably try and use it a little bit more. I mean, there are advantages to the Pocket, like you can stick that on a pole and then move it up, and it's like you've got it on one of the big what do they call the big poles, Aaron, that you
a jib?
Yes. So you can get like jib shots, and it can do tracking and things like that. So the Pocket still has an area out there that, it can follow you. It can do all these other things. What I do love about this one, and I was a little bit unsure about the tracking in the Pocket, whereas I know everything I shoot in this is going to be in focus. So that's one thing for me. If I'm dealing with just doing something quick, I know everything is in focus in this, and I don't have to worry about getting home and then finding all the work that I've done there's going to be something that's out of focus. Whereas the Pocket, there was that potential that it might focus on something a little bit soft or misfocus, where I don't have that with the Osmo Action, if that makes sense.
So was you saying the Action on continuous autofocus does better than the Pocket?
Well, everything's in focus. It's not
because of the wide aperture and the field of view and all that. Yeah, that's true. Now, I'll give you my take on why I decided to keep this instead of an Action, and because I was thinking about it. But the main reason for this for me is when I hate having gear. I work on my stuff fast if I'm doing something. If I'm going to do behind the scenes of my photo shoots or whatever, then what I usually do is I just use a light stand. And this is the cool thing. Light stands, you can't adjust the legs on most of them. Sometimes you can, but here's the reason. You could just open up a light stand like this, put it on the ground, raise this up, and I actually keep this on, when I'm going from spot to spot. and I don't need a ball head. I don't need to adjust nothing because it has a gimbal on it. I turn it on and it automatically levels itself, perfect. So when I have like an action or a regular camera, you got to get the ball head and you got to maneuver it. If you're on a slant or uneven ground, you're always moving legs around or ball heads to get it adjusted. This is so quick because let me just screw this in and you'll see I don't do this on every shot like this. I just actually walk around with it on here and I just put it down. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah. And I just turn it on and of course it faces that way. I wish you had an option to make it face behind you, but then once you face it the other way, it's already leveled. I just start talking to the thing and press record or whatever. So that's one of the main reasons. The other thing is I think it's a little better for B-roll because it's a little zoomed in, you can crop things out a little bit and, just like you're using more of a telephoto zoom than just all wide all the time. But I don't do I think the action would be okay for that too. But that's my main reason is I don't have to balance. And I just this is how I carry it around. I just put it on the side of my backpack just like this. Of course I turn this off and I just carry it like that. And when I need to go, I just put it out, turn it on and it levels. So that's why I like that so much.
Yeah, I must give it a go and try it again. I mean, I've still got it, so I should use it a little bit more.
Or sell it.
Yeah, or sell it. Yeah, I mean, it's just otherwise it's just sitting there, isn't it? But I'll see how we go. I mean, I should try and go and get the audio adapter for it and then see if I can use it.
What?
Vlogging.
About the audio adapter, that really turns me off, that little thing, because when you have the adapter, this is kind of cool, this case, because it's actually protrudes down and that actually protects it, because that's just a little dongle that goes there and that thing can just get so easily bumped. And man, I just wish they would make it like a right angle to come off the side where you stick it in, it comes off the side. I mean, they could do it and that way it'd be protected. This case actually does protrude down, so at least from a front hit or a back hit, it can't break because it's there. So that's kind of cool about this case. But yeah, I wish they had more of like a little base that would go on like you see to stand it up, but with a microphone jack on the side. That way it's a little more durable, but we'll see.
So Aaron said, what case is that, Aaron?
Oh my gosh, you guys asked that from me last time and someone in the chat knew and I didn't. What's those filters that you reviewed before? I think it's from that same company, David.
The Free Will or something?
No.
Polar Pro.
I think it might be one of. It might be that. Can't remember, man. Like I said, I got this when I got this whole thing, and I just don't remember the name of it. Darn it. I don't know. I should do a review on this whole
Polar
pocket.
Pro mount. Someone has said there. Langston said it's the Polar Pro mount.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think that's what it is. And it's good because it has a 1/4-20 on the side and it has a 1/4-20 on the back. So one thing, like David said, it's not like water resistant. They are making a case for it and all that stuff. But I was considering making like a little rain covered jackety thing for this because I'm going to start changing my YouTube up channel a little bit on content you guys will see in the future. If I don't want to say it because if I don't do it, you guys aren't waiting for it. And I can use this to make like a little rain cover for it. I was thinking some ideas. So it could be, it's just showering. It won't get it wet. So 1/4-20, it's kind of cool.
See, Aaron also said PG Tech. That's the case that I had.
Yeah, it's not that. I know it's not that.
Yeah. All right. Now, oh God, the people... The people that aren't into video aren't going to like this story, but I love it, this sort of stuff. So I'm going to talk about this Red Giant software.
This is like a video episode.
Yeah, I know. This is like a video episode today. Doesn't mean we'll
talk as much.
Yeah. So this is a new Red Giant VFX suite that's just been released, and they've got 9 killer tools that they have just brought out. We're not going to spend long on this, but Aaron, did you want to go through this quickly?
Yeah, I'm a special effects artist, and I love to do motion graphics. I did motion graphics for TV, smaller production things here in Puerto Rico. Not a whole bunch, but I did get hired for some of that stuff. So, and I did a short film using CGI, robots, and all that stuff. So I'm a video guy. I love using After Effects. And one of the biggest names in After Effects plugins is Red Giant. They have suites where you can color grade stuff. One of the tools that I used to color grade all the time before I went to DaVinci Resolve was one of their plugins. I can't remember what it's called now. Colorista. Someone else did it, but they bought it or something like that. But this right here is really cool if you're into it, because they just updated everything. And down, oh yeah, I'm scrolling. I thought I was scrolling that, David. You are. That's too funny. Down here, I think the most exciting thing in this whole thing is called the super comp. If you guys know anything about After Effects, when you create a comp, you have to add all your effects.
Which one's that one? Is it down?
The super, I don't.
Let me quit. I'll let you share it. Hang on. So you can share it.
Share it. So the super comp, can you see the warrior right here?
Yep.
This is the super comp. So when you add this super comp thing, it adds all of these things on the side. You can see it's a super comp. And when you're in After Effects, you add all this stuff. What you usually do is you pre-compose. I'm forgetting my terminology. You do a pre-comp, I think what it's called, and it gathers all of those effects and puts it into a new comp. And I'm not going to get into details because it's just be impossible to do. And you don't have to do that with this. It's all kind of in one. So if you know After Effects and you know what I'm talking about, where you're stacking all your effects and you want to do a pre-comp, I might be using the wrong terminology, then you don't have to do that with this. And that saves a whole bunch of time because it just sets it up and you got your little window or whatever you call these on the side to do that. And then they've got updates to one of my favorite things, and that is called, can't remember. If down here somewhere, they got a new tracker, a pin tracker. This is cool because it can track items. So it's got a new tracker. If you want to add, like in this shot here, you want to add a logo to a car, it'll track that much better. And I can't remember. It's a particle generator where you can create any kind of particle you want, whether it's electric bolts or snow or smoke or glitter or anything like that. And that looks really cool in this. Like I said, we're not going to go too far into, but if you are a special effects artist and you want some really cool ways to get those special effects going, check out the new Red Giant VFX Suite release. It's is that what they call this? VFX Red Giant VFX Suite, I guess they call it. So Check it out. Okay, done.
Okay, so that's that one. Now the next one is this ShiftCam, and these are interesting. Some of these little lenses that come out now for phones. Like if you really look, I often don't take my normal cameras anymore. I do just take my iPhone with me sort of everywhere because I find the quality is often good enough for what I need. And there's some great lenses that are coming out. This is a ShiftCam 12mm. It's an ultra wide angle spherical lens. It's now on Kickstarter. You can see the sort of size that it is there. And then,
they said?
Yeah, I know. There's a video down here that you can look at. Like I said, all the links will be down below after we finished as well. And then it gives you some images that you can look at. But I've never really got into any of these lenses, and I'd love to know what people think about them. They're saying it's $99 US for a 112mm lens and the mounting system, which is the phone case and the universal mount, but it does go up to $299 for additional set of ShiftCam lenses as well. But they certainly seem to have some interesting things. I know I've even seen, and I can't remember it, there was they're a husband and wife that I watch on YouTube sometimes. They've done some really interesting videos using, what's the program that they always use that takes these anamorphic lenses into consideration? It's Filmic Pro. So Filmic Pro is a really good app, and you can attach sort of anamorphic lenses and things like that to it and do some really incredible video that you would have to have done with, you know, these really expensive cameras and really expensive anamorphic lenses. But some of these ones are great, like if you want to add zoom lenses, if you want to add wide angle lenses and things like that. They're great systems to use, but I have to be honest, I've never used them. And I'd love to know in the comment box down below whether you guys have and whether you think they are worth it. And, you know, if they are, which ones would you recommend? Because, you know, it might be something that I have a look at purchasing when I go to the States, just in case if I want to go light and I can just take my phone with me and grab some images. So have you used them, Aaron?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen because I started a YouTube channel a long time ago, many years ago. And one of my things that I noticed people were really asking me was about how to film with iPhones. One of my most watched videos, it's somewhere around here, who cares, it was how to use Filmic Pro. Filmic Pro just came out. They shared it on their website because there was like no tutorials on it really. So I did this long explanation on all the settings in a film environment, on like how would a professional actually use that app and stuff like that. And right here, you can see one of my things called DIY iPhone Lens. I used to call my channel TFX. And I actually, before they started making iPhone, or at least before I knew about it, I made an OtterBox case, and I actually, you can see me over here. Here's a lens on how to do it, but you don't need to do it no more. They make this. So I made an OtterBox to support, those type of lenses that we're sharing on the show. And so I actually did use these, and I just made a screw mount on an OtterBox so I can screw in different lenses. And they were pretty awful. I mean, the wide ends had a lot of distortion and fuzziness on the edges, but I think now they probably, see a need for it because the cameras got better. So I'm sure they're better now. So I have used those. And I don't think I have any more on that. And I'm going to unshare this. And one of the things that I was just thinking, David, was we're talking about, am I here? There I am. We're talking about the Osmo. We're talking about the Action and all these other, can we just use our iPhone? And because I was watching a side-by-side video of the Osmo and the iPhone X, maybe it was, and just versus, the two. And my goodness, as long as you're not running with the iPhone, it looked better. The quality from that iPhone just looked out of camera, richer, better. It just looked amazing. If all you want to do is film yourself and turn it around and film other things, and that's it. Once you start running, if you want to run with this, of course, it's a lot better having a gimbal on it, but I never run with this thing. So if you're just filming yourself, you put on a tripod like I do with this, but I'm just filming myself. Now, you're not going to have that image stabilization thing that I use where I don't have to adjust stuff. But let's just say, why not just use the iPhone in a wide angle lens like that? It's beyond me. What do you guys think?
Well, that's what I'd love to know in the chat too, because like I said, I haven't used them. Everything Man's here. G'day, mate. If you haven't watched his stuff, check him out. He's got a great channel. I love watching his stuff. He's got a great sense of humor, and he has some really interesting stuff that he puts up. So if you haven't followed him, guys, check him out.
I never checked him out. I will.
Yeah, he's great, Aaron. Yeah, he's really good because he's got a really great personality. So thanks for
glad to have you.
Thanks for joining in here.
Yes.
All right, let's get into the last story before we open up the chat for a little bit. So this last story is really interesting because Canon have done it again. I love it. Honestly, it is now getting to be almost ridiculous that they've just released the Canon PowerShot. It's this G7X3. This is a preview announcement that is on the discussion here. But look, I'm not going to discuss this much, but I noticed down the bottom that they're saying here that strangely, the G7X3 also lacks 24p video and eye detection too. What is Canon smoking? Seriously, when are they going to learn that you cannot treat your customers like idiots? 24p is a standard. 24p should be in every single camera that's out there because it is a standard, and not including it is just crazy. Did you read this article, Aaron? Or
well, the thing was, I got a notification from B&H. Oh, new camera out. So I clicked on the link, and I saw the forget their names from B&H, but they do a lot of their showing off new products from that's been released, and they were showing it. A G5 came out as well, but the G7 has some features. So when they flipped the camera up and they said, and a mic jack, I was like, oh boy, we got a mic jack on a front flipping screen, small. It's a f1.2 whatever lens. It zooms from 24, I think, which is pretty good, to 100, I think, around there. And it was great. And then as he started filming himself, it's a bearded guy, it wasn't in focus. Like, no shots were in focus. I was like, what? It's just not in focus. This is why. What? And then they started going through the specs. It doesn't have the pixel. What's that? Dual pixel I don't know, phase detection. I don't know what they're.
Oh, they took that out as well.
Yeah, they don't have that in there. So I'm like, okay, that sucks, right? Why not just add that in there? Because it would be the vloggers. I mean, if you're vlogging, two major things. You want a mic input, you want a front-facing screen, and you want autofocus to work good. That's why Panasonic, people don't go for those, even though everything else is good. So they got rid of that dual pixel, whatever they call it, and then they got rid of 24p. So I'm like, why? It just, I mean, it blew my mind when I saw that they got rid of those two things, but gave us everything else. So it's just ridiculous. So
I mean, they keep saying all that. They keep getting bagged by everyone that's out there saying that they're leaving this stuff out.
They've got to hear it, right?
They keep doing it every single time. They keep doing the same thing. I think. Did Camera Conspiracies talk about this morning? I've got to watch it because I know he posted a video, so I've got to watch it because
right before we got on, I see a thumbnail of his saying something about this. I don't know what he says about it, but I'm sure he's just as dumbfounded as I am by it being taken out 24p. Why? When the 5D, the 5D came out with the first DSLR with 24 1080, all these years every camera had it, and now they take them out. And then the phase detection thing or whatever you call it, why would they take it out? They could have that in there. It doesn't hurt any of their other cameras because I think this is a 1-inch sensor, I believe. I kind of forget. It doesn't hurt any of the other cameras. So put that in there, and that would sell like to so many vloggers. So.
Well, all they've done is they've made people go out and purchase the Sony the RX 1V. I mean, or version 5. That's all they've done is if you were in that marketplace, you'd be buying the Sony before you would buy this one. I mean, it's just I just can't understand leaving 24p and a good focus out of a camera like this. I mean, not only that, these are the cameras that are really starting to struggle selling. These are the ones that are being hit harder than any other camera. And you might as well use your cell phone because at least you know it's going to be in focus and you can shoot with whatever you want to do with it.
Exactly. It's always in your pocket.
Yeah.
You can get microphones for your iPhones.
Yep.
It's just, wow. Why would they do that? If they just added, I can't wait to see Camera Conspiracies to see what he says. But if they just added those two things, I don't even know what the image stabilization is. It didn't look too bad when they were filming themselves. Kind of normal.
I don't think it says. I'm just trying to see if it says.
Watching the video, it didn't look like it was terrible, but just those two things, 24p. I like actually 30 and 60 when I'm vlogging just because I want people to kind of experience it. I'm not trying to get a filmic look, but a lot of people like that. So just taking that out is just ridiculous. This is Gordon Lang here, by the way. If you guys never watch him, he does really good, thorough reviews. So check out his website.
I mean, look, it's got one big plus in the fact that it has a microphone adapter, which I can't understand why Sony have left that out of the RX series.
They just need to be able to upgrade and get people to buy the new thing, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose they want to push people, if they want to then start doing that, to move up to the A6000 series, and I suppose that's their marketing side of things. But
so I guess Canon's marketing thought, well, we can give them everything they want, but let's take out 24p and take out that phase focus thing. That'll push them to the next camera. Well, no, if someone's in this market, it's either, do I keep my cell phone that's really good, always in my pocket, or do I get this? Well, it's going to lose focus, so I might as well keep my cell phone. It's
it's going to sell like, I know Camera Conspiracies loves it. It's going to sell like hotcakes.
Him and his hotcakes. Oh my gosh.
I love it.
His hotcakes.
All right, let's quickly open up to, because we've already been on for an hour and 10 minutes. How about our photo?
Do you want to share photos real quick?
Yes, quickly. Yep, go. So that you can share yours first if you like, Aaron.
Okay, let me share. I won't take too long here. Share. Okay, so we were in the Dominican Republic and we went out and did a photo shoot, and how we almost always do my photo shoots, we always like to match the clothing with the scenery, and that's what we did here. As you can see, it's just, that's one of my things. Even in video, when I started doing video 11 years ago, my scenes always had to match with the clothing. Hollywood does that, they paint walls and everything. So that's what I did here, and it was a beautiful place. And what I did here was I used I'm doing a lens review on a Fujifilm 16 to 55 millimeter f2.8, and in full frame equivalent as far as focal length, that's 24 to 84, which is amazing because It has the 24 millimeter that I dearly missed on the Tamron, the Sony Tamron 28-75, and it's only 1 millimeter short of the 85 millimeter portrait lens, and it's sharp. It's actually sharper than some of the primes, corner to corner. So stay tuned to that. That'll be my very next video coming up. And that's what I used on here. I zoomed all the way in for this shot. I got all the way on the ground. And the cool thing about Fuji's is the camera kind of flips out in the vertical mode. So I rested the camera on the ground with that vertical flip out so I could see beautifully. But while my wife was talking to her mom, who's off to the left while I was setting things up, the composition didn't look like this when I first got there. So what I did was this flower on the side. I wanted to get the whole flower, and sometimes when you shoot this, you get something really good, but the pose isn't really good. And so I did get the whole flower on some shots, but I like this pose best. So what I did with this flower here, I think it's an orchid. It was actually pointing and tilting the other way, and so what that was doing, it was just leading my eye out of the frame. So I went over there and I spun the vase so that this flower is pointing in, along with the lamp pointing in, and everything's pointing toward my wife, and my wife is at the edge. So your eye kind of goes toward her and stays in the middle here with that composition. So that was an actual thought process of doing that. And now there were two lights up here. One was kind of cut off. I just couldn't get this whole thing in the shot that my composition, so I actually photoshopped those out because a half of one didn't look good. And the way the lighting was, I did have a flash over here, but never used it. I just hate using flash. I use it if I need it. Over here was a window, like way over here, with daylight coming in, and on top was a big skylight with light coming in. It lit up the scene beautifully. You can see this is a little blown out on here. And that's basically how I got the shot. And I think it was a very pretty, and my wife did amazing. And okay, so I'll let you do yours, David.
That's lovely.
Thank you.
All right, so let me have a look here. I'm just showing this one. So this was a, can I get present? Oh, hang on. I wonder if I can grab that.
When you're done with yours, I'll come back to another point I forgot to say.
Yeah, application window. It must be down here, I think, is it? No. I'll just have to show it differently, I think. Oh, hang on. Let me just open this up.
Do you want me to talk while you're looking, or are you almost done?
Should be just done in a sec. Oh, you can talk for a second.
Okay, so when I did that shot, I didn't say my settings. I'm not going to share it again. I'll just tell you guys. But the settings were at 200 ISO, which is the base ISO on the XH1, and at 55 millimeters at f2.8. 2.8 for me is perfect, especially the further you get away, the more it's in focus, but sometimes I shoot at f5.6. But in order to get the right exposure for this, I had to shoot at 20th of a second. And people always ask me, why do you use the XH1 over the X-T3 and for the image stabilization? Shooting at 55 millimeters, which is 84 millimeter equivalent, at 20th of a second, I can't hold a camera still if my life depends on it. So that image IBIS in this camera really helps me out doing my photo shoot. So I wanted to add that if anybody's a Fuji fan, and why I use the XH1 is because of the IBIS. Okay, David.
Okay, let me share this now. Oh, there we go. Hang on. Screen share, application. There it is. All right. So this image, it's quite funny because when I posted the review of the Tamron 17-28, I had one guy commented to say, why did you show portraits in that image? You never shoot portraits with wide angle lenses. And I thought, well, that's a complete load of rubbish because I do it all the time. This was one which I've shot with the 16-35 f4, and it's shot at 16 mil. It's the only way I could be that close to get this whole scene in. So you can't tell me that you cannot use wide angle lenses for portraiture. You just have to be careful with how you do it. Mm-hmm. And particularly here, I've got the bride sitting in the middle of as close as possible into the middle of the scene, and then I've spread the dress out completely. I couldn't have got this shot if I didn't have a wide angle lens. And I don't look at this as having really bad distortion. I actually look at this as thinking this image looks lovely, and it's shot with a very wide angle lens at 16 mil. So when people say you can't use wide angle lenses for portraits, I think really that they're limiting themselves in their thinking, because you can get a completely different look and completely different perspective shooting something like this It's a pity you can't see the whole image because it's beautiful if you see it big screen. But this was lit from the front. She was backlit with a very big window, but I lit this from the front with my Profoto B10 with continuous light. So it wasn't using flash. It was using continuous light that was just balanced to the daylight, and that's how this was lit. But the detail is there. I've made sure that I exposed. Again, they pay so much for the wedding dress that all the details I've made sure are there on the dress, which is just so critical. But I love this photo. I'm standing up on a chair, and you know, and I've just got her to look up with me to make sure she relaxes her forehead so that she doesn't get any lines in the forehead. So I'm always so critical with that. And just tilt their head just a fraction. But you can see it's got even a bit of depth because it's got a little bit of shadow that's on the face as well. But this was more to show you that using wide angle lenses can give you a really different look. Everyone is always shooting portraits with, you know, 85s and 135s and things like that. And why not think a little bit outside the box, do something that's a little bit different, and shoot with a wide angle lens with a portrait. Just don't put them at the edge though. That's one thing that you do have to be critical about. I can't remember the settings because I've just opened this up in preview, but it was probably F4 because I would have opened up as much as I could, and then obviously just raise the ISO and use the continuous light to get the exposure as it is. I always do try and, last thing too, I do always try and raise the flowers up just to cover the breasts because I don't want to make this looking like, because I'm on a chair, I don't want to be looking down at the camera and just looking at breasts. I just don't think that that's very flattering on a bride. So I'll always have them lift the flowers up to sort of try and cover the cleavage there, which I think, you know, looks much more flattering. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with that. So that's that one.
Beautiful. And yeah, just like we've always said this too, is we don't always just shoot wide open on a Fujifilm with a f1.8 crop. F2.8 is like an F4-ish. So I'm always stopping down. Same reasons. You want everything in focus. Beautiful shot. It's cool to see how you use natural light. And I'm so glad that you pointed out the breast thing, because that's so important when you're looking down. Sometimes I forget that, is you just don't want to see, like, you know, this is a bride. This isn't like a boudoir or however. But how do you say that photo shoot?
Boudoir.
Boudoir. You don't want it to look like that. So that's a really good tip for a lot of people, including myself, is to just bring that in a little bit. Beautiful shot and nice work of lighting. Now, I was texting someone. Did you have to move her in accordance to the light, or was it overall?
No, I just sat her directly with the light at the back of her from the big window that was there, and then lit her from the front with the Profoto continuous lighting. Yeah, so that's how that's done.
Oh, you use continuous lighting on the front?
Yes. Yeah, it was using the B10.
And it was enough to light that. Wow, that's good.
It is with that Magnum reflector. Yeah, that's got a lot of power. Yep.
Good. Sorry, I missed that. I was texting somebody.
That's fine. And the other thing too is that, and this is where you have to be. This is why I'm saying you have to be careful if you're using wide-angle lenses. If I didn't bring those flowers up, remember, whatever is closest to the camera is going to look larger. So she would have looked like her breasts were much bigger than what they actually were. So to have the flowers lifted up just gives it a much nicer perspective, you know, and she just adores that photo. And, you know, you can do anything with wide angle lenses. But I noticed someone here also said that, it was MavFan, said people are always confusing headshots and portraits. And that's exactly right. I wouldn't do a headshot with a wide angle. I would do half body though, and also full body. But yeah, I wouldn't do a headshot because you will get distortion in that regard. So you do have to be careful.
Now, I do a lot of low shots with like 24 mils, and that will tend to make the model look longer legs and stuff. And depending on what they're wearing, like if it's a dress or long slacks, it actually kind of looks cool. So I shoot wide too, people, but you have to know what's going on, because you don't want to, if someone looks weird, if you can stretch them out too long, they might look too weird. And like we all said, if you put it in the center, don't do headshots. So yep, I use wide lenses as well. Not very often, but when it's that low shot, it kind of looks cool.
All right, so we'll do a little bit of Q&A. I just wanted to mention too, someone did mention earlier on about the Jason Lanier saga with the models. I'm not commenting on anything about that, guys. So just understand that when you're on any of our live shows, it needs to be held in court. So I'm just not commenting at all about that. So there was a comment about that in the chat. Most people didn't even go on about it. So what I'm trying to say to people is there's no point putting live questions about that in the chat because I'm just not going to address it. So I don't
we'll just keep it camera stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's for me or Aaron to discuss that.
No.
So yeah, we're not going to discuss that at all. Let that play out in court. So let's go anyway to some questions down here. I noticed Casper and Photomia are having goes at each other like usual. You two are out of control, honestly. Now, someone was saying they were talking about the this anamorphic lens that's being released for the DJI drone, and they're saying I think it's on Kickstarter at the moment. But a couple of people were having interesting discussions about that because I think they were saying it's $300. But then someone was saying with the laws now of how strict it's getting to fly drones, that they don't think that that's going to take off. I notice here, even in Australia, they're thinking about changing the laws again. We can still fly them, but I think now we have to do a small course or something on it, and then you have to be registered. But I think in the States now it's getting even more.
I think Tony Northrup has. I think a pretty. I'm just not into drones. I think they're cool. If I were to buy a drone, I'd probably buy a racing one because I love remote control cars and stuff. So I used to race them. I would probably buy a racing drone before I buy like a video drone type, for production stuff. But Tony Northrup, I remember having a video all about the laws and the procedure, like you're talking about, like a test or something you have to fill out in order to get, I don't know, registered or licensed or something to do so. So yeah, I think in the States, I think it's required. I think that's what his video might have been implying. But anybody that does drones, maybe you look into that. No, I don't know.
But I know there's so many restrictions now too, though, about where you can fly. And there's big fines if you fly in the wrong place. And I think it's getting harder and harder to find places, particularly in cities. I know in America it's really bad. I think you've got to be very, very careful. Canada is even worse because Canada rules that they brought in where you can't fly close to almost anything like animals or people or anything like that. Their rules were really strict. So it's almost not worth, unless those rules have changed. But I remember when that first came out, it was almost like there was no point in having one in Canada. And if anyone's watching from Canada, they might be able to tell me if that was correct or not. A couple of people. Yep, go ahead, Aaron.
What drone? Do you have a drone?
Yes.
And what drone is that? Is that an older one or a newer?
No, I've got the Maverick, not the new Maverick, but I've got the Maverick Pro. So it's the original one. Our drone laws are pretty good here. I mean, we can more or less fly in most places, so we are still really good here. But we've got an app too that shows you where you can fly. You can open that up, and I can fly around here where I live. Actually,
well, how's the average people treat you when they see it? They're like, oh, gee,
No, they're fine. I've never had an issue here in Australia. That we're pretty laid back, really. But I know that it happens in the States. I've heard of people where others are going on about it and being abused and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it's an interesting thing now, but it definitely is getting harder. That's for sure.
I live here in Puerto Rico, and I see drones flying. I live on the edge of a golf course here, and I see drones flying all the time around here. So here, I don't think anybody really cares. So I don't know what the laws are, but I don't think, from what I hear, I don't think people too much fussy about it. But I do know some parts of I've seen, YouTube videos of people getting kind of upset with drones and throwing stuff at them and stuff like that. So it might be getting more annoying as more people have them. I'm not sure.
Michael Maestro said Canon loves to shoot at themselves in the head.
Yes, they do.
They do. I know it. It's
for
crazy.
Years and worse lately.
I love Mark Frost's comment because Mark Frost said the Canon camera might revive the Mad magazine.
Yeah. I forgot about that magazine.
Yeah, I used to read that myself.
Yeah.
The Everything Man said Canon digging their own grave, always crippling themselves. I know that. I just don't understand what they're doing. Oh, it's just incredible. I mean, Sanch, I think that's how you pronounce it, said Sony will go for cheaper full frame and pro APS-C cameras. So that's what Sanch believes is going to happen. Phil said, has anyone used Affinity Photo? Love it. No monthly fees. Just as good as Photoshop. Any thoughts? Well, I haven't used it at all. Have you used Affinity Photo, Aaron?
Yeah, I use it all the time for the iPad. That's I've been using. I think did I do a video on that yet? I don't think I have, but I mentioned it so many times. I use Affinity Photo for iPad all the time for my photography. If you are a Fujifilm user, right before their last update, I noticed that if you bring a RAW file in, it sees it. It says RAW. It didn't quite react like my Sony RAW files. So then. But I usually do the raw processing in Lightroom first, getting my balance down. Then I go over to Affinity Photo where I do compositing and skin using frequency separation and all that. But I just brought in a raw file into Affinity Photo on the iPad with the Fujifilm, and I noticed that it wasn't the full resolution. They just did an update, maybe I don't know, maybe been 2 months now, maybe a month ago, and now it's showing up as full. So I'd have to look into that more if we're really getting the full thing out of a Fuji film. But if you use Lightroom to process your raw file and then over there for all your other like Photoshop type things, it's a beautiful, I mean, using that with my Apple Pencil, I've been doing that for a long time, many years. I don't use a computer anymore for photo processing.
But so you don't use Lightroom at all now?
Only on the iPad. So like my website, if you go to aaronjanderson.com and you look at all my photography, I have like, the different photo shoots on there. It's like my portfolio-ish type thing. All of that is literally like the same as you see it there is kind of like it is in my Lightroom. So when I bring in photos to Lightroom Mobile, I can fix them up there with, using RAW to get the lighting all right. Then I go to Affinity Photo, then I bring them back into Lightroom, put them in whatever folder, and they automatically pop up in my aaronjanderson.com. So my Lightroom workflow is amazing. When I have a wedding coming up this Saturday. I'm going to share a folder in Lightroom with the client. They can go through there and star the ones they like or check it. It'll notify me, hey, a client just liked the photos, and then right in Lightroom with the raw files that the same photos they're seeing, they can see the JPEG versions, I think, how that works. I can't remember. And then I can fix them right there. And it's just amazing. It's like, so yeah, I use Lightroom a lot.
Cool. I love Michael's comment. Michael says, Photomiac, Nikon is really Sony. I didn't want to tell you this, but you had to hear it from someone.
What did he say?
He's basically saying to Photomiac that Nikon is really a Sony, I suppose, because they use Sony sensors. I love it.
Yeah. Hey, Sony has great sensors,
Creative Film says all the shills are talking up the EOS R still. I know. I don't know how on earth anyone can talk up those cameras. I really don't. They're just a bad release. At least Nikon have released a good release. Thank you so much, Long Rider, for that donation too. I did thank him in the chat earlier.
Which camera came? Yeah, thanks. Which camera company came out that you can't even put like a battery grip on? Was that Nikon or Canon also?
That's the Z series.
Oh, so you can't even get a battery grip. Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. Next thing, Nivak said, next thing we know, Canon will complain the camera market is drying up because they're not creating competitive products. I know, they are just shooting themselves in the foot. You would think, particularly if you're releasing cameras that are declining, you would put everything in that camera to try and make people purchase it at least.
Especially this new one.
Yep.
When the iPhone or smartphones are taking that market over, you're going to come out with a new one, give it what a lot of people want, but then take out the things that we need. It's just, I've already said it 100 times.
Michael said, nice colors, Aaron. That was about your photo. I know Kerry, when she saw that photo, said she loved that photo.
Thank you.
Cameras, Casper said, cameras have 5 years and they will be extinct. Maybe. We don't know what 5 years will be like. Mark said, David Oastler, Apple crippled all plugs on the MacBook Pros over the years. So it seems what Canon are doing, it seems that that's what also Canon are doing on their cameras, basically dumbing them down.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I know it is. What else? Photomiac said, where were we? Oops. I just flew my drone yesterday over the Oregon coast, got some sick footage. That's great. Mark said, CASA registration allows you to do commercial video. That's right, it does. That's CASA is here in Australia.
Hey, David, Gerald is asking, is that update for the Pocket Osmo Pocket and the Action? Do you know, or is it just for the?
It's only the Pocket. Well, I don't see,
because I didn't look since I don't have it.
No, because like I said, I don't even know what autofocus is on this, the Osmo Action, because everything's in focus anyway. So there's no focus to worry about. It's just everything is in focus. So it wouldn't ever have to get to phase detection anyway.
That's kind of nice to have something like that. That's kind of nice to have something while running and gunning type of vlogging that I do. It's just that gimbal thing that I liked.
Taking my Maverick Pro to Switzerland where there are no drone laws. That's what Eli says. Well, that's fantastic. Lucky you. That'll get some beautiful footage over there. Andre said, Aaron, I heard you were switching to Sony.
I am. When this new thing comes out on July 17th, I got these on eBay already, actually, just in case, you know, like all there. And once I have the button, I sell them and get the new Sony.
What else have we got? I'm just ignoring Michael and Casper. Fanamiak, I mean. Just talking about, the Jason Laney thing, like which I said we're not going to discuss. Gerald says, is the update just for, that's what you read. Yeah. It's only for the Pocket. Yeah, I don't see why it'd even be there at
makes
all.
Sense.
What else have we got? Andre said, guys, there's nothing to talk. Oh, that's still about Jason, which I'm not going to discuss. What else have we got? Langston said he's enjoying the gossip. Gerald said, we agreed to keep that out of the videos in the Facebook group. Yeah, still talking about that. They're still going on about it, so I'm not going to even look at that. And that's about it. So we're down to the bottom. So that's... go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, one thing, I'm going to share my screen because we want to plug the photography and videography school. It's a Facebook page that David started. If I get my messages off there, kind of playing with someone with pictures of, And we can go down here and you can see that there's, did I get to the top? This is what it looks like. Now, when you guys are searching for this, make sure you put this little, what is that called? That little and symbol there. Don't, spell it just like that. But everybody screws that up and then personal messages me, say, like, I can't find it. And because they're not putting that little and thing there. So videography, that little and thing, photography and videography school. What we got on here is we really keep a tight ship on here on people's comments. We don't like harassments and bullying. We don't let people come on here and just trash people. Everybody on here is really helpful. And unless someone is asking you, hey guys, I took this photo, how can I make it better?
Apasand, someone just put
Apasand, haven't heard that ever. And go on there because it's great. You can rest assured that you can go on there with a question. There's no dumb questions. Someone will answer you politely. If they don't, we get rid of them. And you can put anything up here. You can promote your stuff, your websites, YouTube videos that you find. The only thing that David doesn't allow is to go live on Facebook. And there's a whole bunch of great people on here. And the admins on here, I'm one of them. Gerald here, he's one of them. I don't know if anybody else is in the chat that's on here. And we're just going to kick out people that are being rude. So go on there. We really would love to have you. And also, please subscribe to my channel. We do this behind the photo on Tuesday on David's channel, and then the next following week on my channel. We kind of share back and forth like that. And we're subscribed to both of our channels. Give this video a thumbs up. Like right now, if you're watching and you hear me saying that, go over to the thumbs up button. Hit that thumbs up button because it really helps. If you have a question that we did not answer, then leave it in the description of this video, or if you're watching this later and you're not live with us, leave a comment. We'd love to get to it, and we thank you guys for coming. Anything else, David, before you sign off? I'll give it to you.
No, that's it. So stay tuned for the review of this little cage that I'm going to show later today. And then apart from that, I think I've got just another review. I've got a cage for the A6400 that I want to show you all. That's an Arca Swiss cage that is really nice as well. So that'll be coming up in the next couple of days. And there's also someone contacted me yesterday about it's a Wi-Fi controller that I can stream video wirelessly over 100 meters. So I'm going to be reviewing that in the coming days as well. Apart from that, I'll be live on Friday, Thursday, your time, US and European time, for the Sony Alpha News and Rumors show. We should have plenty to discuss with what's happening here. We should also be able to discuss the Sigma lens releases and the Sony releases. So I'll see you with that on Thursday. Apart from that, guys, that's it.
One thing I would add, we didn't talk about the Canon, that the new, what is the name of that new Canon? I don't want to get it wrong. The what did we say that thing was?
G7X.
Yeah, the G7X. One cool thing it has is you can actually stream YouTube live from it. So you might be able to, I don't know how it works. They didn't know how, but apparently you can connect to your phone and stream YouTube live. And the camera sounds great, but it's bad. I just read that and I forgot to post. So live YouTube right from the camera, pretty cool. Maybe you have to connect to your phone. And then for me, stay tuned for the Fujifilm 16 to 55 f2.8 lens review coming up. You know my reviews, they can be quite long, but they have everything that you'd want to know about the lens. And that's it, guys.
No worries. All right, catch you guys. Have a great day. It's just about time for me, and I'm going to do this in my New York accent. I'm going to go for a coffee. So it's coffee time. Thanks so much for the support, everyone. Like Aaron said, if you could give me a thumbs up, or both of us a thumbs up, that would be great. We'll see you next week on Aaron's channel, same time, same station. So look forward to that. I can't wait to see you all, and I'll see you all for the next live on Friday. Catch you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye. See you later.